Yeah. Yeah.
Deborah, how are we looking?
We've got Rick online and we're recording and ready to roll.
We're just gonna go with this screen, or we're gonna be able to see.
Oh, I'm up. Nope. Whenever you're ready.
That's where I
Sorry.
was kidding. That's what I was like. There we go. All right, good afternoon, everybody. 5 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the work session for the Frisco Town Council. May I have the roll call, please?
Mortensen,
Here.
Aronson,
Here.
Burley, Fallon, Held, Incan,
Here.
Sherburne, absent.
Thank you so much.
Certainly.
The first agenda item in this afternoon's work session is invited Tammy from CIRSA to join us to give us a presentation towards excellence in the council work culture. So with that, unless Diane, are you kicking it off, or am I turning it right
Nope,
over?
turn it right over to Tammy. She
Excellent.
is ready and good to go. Thank you.
Tammy, thank you for your time. Welcome. And I would say the floor is yours, but the screen is yours at this point.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to share my screen, so please bear with me a moment. All right, so I'm calling this presentation Towards Excellence in a Council Work Culture, which may be a little bit presumptuous, and if so, I certainly apologize, because certainly, my going in presumption is that you already have an excellent council work culture. But what I did here was to essentially compile all the suggestions for when councils are experiencing, a less than optimal work culture, with the hope that you can turn to this as a reference source. So this is the second time that I've presented this particular set of slides, and it's intended to be a statewide presentation. And so any resemblance is strictly coincidental. So that is my first disclaimer. I also want to apologize for the incorrect typing of my name in Zoom. The first time that I ever logged into Zoom, I used my nickname, which is a combination of my name and my husband's, but my name is actually Tammy Tenoy. So let me find out whether you agree or disagree with what I call the realities of being a member of the governing body. And there are about a half dozen of them. And these really do compose sort of the basis for all of my suggestions. And I'll delve into these in a little bit of detail. Please do stop me at any point. Just open your mic, and if you want to comment or ask a question, please do so.
Tammy,
So the first,
Tammy,
yes.
can I take advantage of that right now? And I'm sorry
Yes.
that I lost my notes. Could you just give I had an introduction for you and I do not have it with me. Could you give a little bit of your background for those tuning in and listening in, just because I was not able to do that for you, and I apologize for that.
Oh, very good. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Tammy Tenoy, and I am currently the executive director at CIRSA, the Colorado Intergovernmental Risk Sharing Agency. And so we are basically your self-insurance pool to handle and to work with you when you have liability and property claims. But I actually have another direct connection with the town of Frisco, which is that when I was in private practice as an attorney, I actually worked with your Home Rule Charter Commission to write your Home Rule Charter. And that was a long time ago. I think it was in the late 80s, but I went through your charter again just before this presentation, and I will still maintain that the town of Frisco charter is among the top 3 best charters in the state of Colorado. So I have some good familiarity with the structure under which the town of Frisco operates. So with that introduction, my first reality about elected officials is that the power you exercise is only as part of the governing body. And so to exercise your powers, you act together in concert as a body. And so this means that outside the body, you don't have any powers. And there are some exceptions to that primarily relate to the mayor, who has some specific mayoral responsibilities. But other than that, your powers are as part of a governing body. And so that means that each of you holds 1/7 of the power of the body. And that power is exercised only at a duly noticed public meeting of the governing body. Another reality of being an elected official is that the body's majority vote carries the day on every issue that comes before it. So that means absent a unanimous vote, there are going to be winners and losers in terms of the issues that come before you and your particular positions. And it's kind of a brutal measure of success as an individual elected official, but one key measure of that success is where your position stands in relation to each majority vote. And then the final reality, and I'll go into this a little bit more in my final slide, is that your powers not only include actual powers, but also some perceived powers that are just as important as your actual powers. So any disagreement with what I call the realities?
Nope. Seeing heads shaking. No.
Okay, great. So let's dig a little deeper into each of these. The concept of part of the governing body. So literally, there's nothing in your Home Rule Charter that calls for the exercise of individual powers as council members, right? Nothing in there says a council member may or a council member shall. Now, obviously, again, there are some mayoral responsibilities that are specifically called out. So what this means is that you can act only as part of a collaborative decision-making body. And so you act as part of the we and not as I. Collaboration implies then a sense of teamwork, give and take, and working together, and trust in good faith and intentions of each of your partners. Sometimes I see councils where it appears that each member is a separate island, each unto himself or herself, with 7 different interests either intersecting or conflicting, but there's no sense of collaboration or about working together to achieve mutual goals.
Hey, Tammy,
Yes.
can you, as you spend a lot of time with collaboration in the presentation, because I have seen the slides.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how collaboration is supposed to happen in compliance with rules where we don't meet other than sitting at a dais once every 2 weeks. To talk about how collaboration happens as opposed to, before we get into what's good collaboration.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that these times are somewhat inhibitive of collaboration. And I do think that ensuring compliance with the open meetings laws and the open records law, which is also very, very important, can also give you a sense that, hey, outside the meeting every 2 weeks, there is no opportunity for us to talk as individuals. But, I guess I should give my second disclaimer now, which is that anything I say that is different from what your wonderful town attorney says, he is always right and I am always wrong. But with that disclaimer, I would say this: there are opportunities for each of you as individual members to talk with other individual members. There are times when that can get risky or problematic. And one example of that would be when there is an actually pending quasi-judicial matter where you haven't heard the evidence, right? And your job is to listen to the evidence and to make a decision based upon that evidence. In that kind of setting, your sort of collaborative opportunities are going to be a little bit different. But in terms of talking with one another as individuals about your priorities, your concerns, questions you may have about, what's going on and how it's being done, and, why is the tradition in the town always like this? Certainly talking with one another is one outlet or avenue for, gaining clarity on those issues. Talking to your manager is another opportunity for doing that. And of course, your attorney is a resource as well. And so, there ought to be a sense that you understand each other, what makes each of you tick, and what are the key priorities for each of you, because unless you understand that, you don't know, well, hey, I can turn to so-and-so and see if he or she has the same concern that I have about a particular issue. So I don't know if that's very helpful, but I do think that individual communication is important. I think opportunities for informal communication are important. And so my hope would be that not too long after you convene, if you first convene as a governing body, you may have an opportunity to have a retreat, right? And ask those questions that have been nagging at you. As an example, I've got this slide in front of me that talks about certain mayoral responsibilities. 5% of what a mayor does is actually set out in the charter, and the other 95% is history, tradition, and mutual consent. And so if you haven't talked about that, then none of you may have a clear understanding or mutual clarity about what those, what that 95% of unspoken or unwritten mayoral responsibilities would comprise. So does that help at all?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So you'll hear me use the family or marriage analogy a few times, and you may be rolling your eyes at this, but my contention is that a governing body is in essence like a marriage or a similar partnership, but it's a marriage that's been arranged by the citizens. And so congratulations on your new family. And let's look for ways to make this new marriage work. So I don't want to get too legal on you, but there is one liability point about I versus we behavior that I want to touch upon. I would look upon your charter as sort of like a job description. And so your powers and responsibilities and the way that you exercise them form a part of that job description. And as we've established, we versus I is the appropriate mode of action and the use of your powers. So that means that when you act as I rather than we, you're potentially straying from your job description and therefore then straying from the best protections that you have from a liability standpoint. So one set of laws that gives you some great liability protections is the Governmental Immunity Act. But it says very explicitly that you have to be within the course and scope of your authorized responsibilities in order to have the protections of governmental immunity. And likewise, if you look at the liability protections that you have through CIRSA, we are very much parallel in that respect, in that we say we will cover you for your acts or omissions, but only when you're within the course and scope of your authorized responsibilities. So when I say I versus we, there are different models for elected officials to act. And they arise from federal officials, state officials, county officials, and municipal officials. And I would say that at other levels of government, there's a lot of I behavior. If you look at members of Congress, for instance, it seems as though a good percentage of the things that they do day to day involve I, the congressman, rather than we gathering together, under in Congress. So, if you were to look at that model, you might be misguided in terms of how municipal governing bodies work. And I think that that's probably true of state level elected officials as well. You see a certain level of I type behavior. And other local governments that have, staffs and that kind of thing tend to turn into, constituent service and that kind of thing that involves I behavior. But I would say that it is somewhat risky to emulate other levels of government in that respect. Digging a little deeper into the 1/7 idea. So the fact that each of you holds 1/7 of the power of the body means that there is an equality of power on the body that needs to be acknowledged and respected. Would you agree with me that there ought to be an equality of power on the body, that none of you should be trying to grab onto or relinquishing your 1/7 power or taking more than 1/7 of the power? But I do see many, yes, go ahead.
We're agreeing with you.
Okay, good, thank you. But there are so many ways in which that equality of power can end up becoming unbalanced. So one of these ways is by inequality of information. I think you would agree with me that equality of information is kind of a required precondition for equality of power. If you don't all have the same opportunity to get the same information at the same time, then that's going to impair your ability to exercise your power on an equal footing with everybody else. I see inequality of information happening in a number of ways. Sometimes I will see a situation where staff, for whatever reason, ends up responding selectively, right? So that one member is looking at another going, where'd you hear that? I didn't hear that. So that, inequality can happen that way. Some governing bodies, unfortunately, are plagued with this odd phenomenon where one member of the governing body is actually doing KORA requests to the city or town in an effort to get more than the information that everybody else gets. And so that's another way in which inequality of information can happen. Now, I would say that all of you are most likely subject matter experts on one topic or another. And that's a really good thing, right? It probably forms part of the basis for why you're interested in serving and why the people who voted for you, right? And so I'm not denigrating subject matter experts. But I've seen situations where somebody will either demand undue deference or be accorded undue deference because of their subject matter expertise. And you can kind of see how that can lead to an inequality of power. So I picked on the architecture profession because I remember watching one city council where all of the issues were development issues. And so the architect on the council said, every issue is an architectural issue and you must defer to me because I'm the subject matter expert. Or insert your favorite occupation. I will certainly plead guilty with my own occupation. I've sat on a board, and as a lawyer, I had a tendency to say, hey, every issue is a legal issue. And so you must listen to me, right? And you can see how that then takes away from the equality of power on a board, a governing body or board. So again, your expertise is very important. It's part of why you were elected. It forms, the basis of your positions on various issues, no doubt, but no one area of expertise requires a special or undue deference from the other members, because at the end of the day, you are all generalists. You are all-purpose decision makers. Meeting time. So meeting time is another way in which inequality can end up happening, inequality of power. So you can see how if one member were to constantly dominate the discussion, then that member would be taking away time from the other members. This is an extreme example, but it actually happened in one governing body that I worked with. They had council comment period. And one member literally was taking 3 hours during council comments. Now, multiply that by the number of members, right? This was an 11 or 13 member body. And so 3 times 11, right? You can't meet long enough to accommodate all the council comments. And therefore, he clearly was taking away from the rest of the council. Now, that's not to say that discussion time has to be divided exactly into sevenths, but it does mean that each member needs to be respectful about using time efficiently. So avoiding repetition, expressing agreement rather than repeating a point if it's already been made, making sure that you go around the room before speaking again, avoiding filibustering or those 3-hour monologues, staying on topic, reducing personal asides, etc. So you guys do have work sessions, and so these can provide a more expansive opportunity to have discussions that don't necessarily have to keep an eye on the clock. And then there are ways in which, as an individual, you can enhance or negate your own equality of power. And so the missing council member, right? If you're a no-show, then essentially you're relinquishing your 1/7 power. Or if you're not prepared, you haven't reviewed the agenda materials, you're contributing to your own inequality of information. So there are ways in which you can end up giving away your own rightful share of the power. And as a collaborative decision-making body, you work best when you're running on all cylinders. And so it is very important that all of you participate in the discussion and decision-making. Transparency, so duly noticed public meetings. I would say in all state government, but more in municipal government above all others, transparency is a key value. The citizens expect it, the media expect it, And so as public officials, it really does need to be a key value that you honor. When the letter or the spirit of the open meetings law or the open records law are not honored, then that's a great prescription for citizens losing faith in the openness of town governments. Sometimes it's citizens saying, hey, we don't seem to know what's going on. Things don't seem to be transparent. But I'm seeing, especially in newspaper articles about current happenings, where factions on a governing body are actually accusing one another of a lack of transparency. And you can kind of see how that could happen. So if 3 of you were to meet before the meeting, or if 3 of you were to hash everything out via text or email before the meeting, or if you had a majority that was inclined to do something like that, then you would be cutting out a good number of your own governing body from being able to participate effectively. And so we did see some newspaper articles about exactly that happening, a new majority on a governing body, basically working everything out and leaving the minority out of it. So transparency laws really are about 2 things. One is the ability of citizens to know what's going on and to be able to participate. But another reason for transparency laws is to help ensure equality of information and equality of power. The idea of majority vote carrying the day. So that's a pretty concrete measure of success. And after each vote, right, you have sort of your scorecard. How often are you on the prevailing side of the vote? But how is it accomplished that majority vote carries the day? And this is where collaboration is so important. If you're fighting it out or arguing it out or yelling it out until one person is standing, then that's not a good way to collaborate. Does politics always have to be a zero-sum game? Sorry, I'm going to have to mute myself for just a second.
No problem.
So politics is the art of compromise. Is such a trite saying, but I think it's a true saying. It's possible to collaborate on solutions that don't create losers and winners and people going away mad. I'm kind of stealing a concept from the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that a lot of people are doing, but centering issues from the margins, issues that could otherwise be ignored or excluded or finding themselves on the losing end of a vote, is something that maybe should be considered. And I went to one council meeting where I swear we all laughed when he said this, but basically he said, why does it have to be majority rule all the time? Why can't we have some minority rule, right? And we did laugh, but I think that the heart of this plea was, hey, I'm in the margins and I would like my concerns to be heard and for you to look at concerns from my perspective too. And so looking for points of commonality between differing perspectives can help to center some of these margins. Another dimension of the majority vote is the idea that once you arrive at a decision, it's so important for each member to honor that decision. And that's not to say that you then have to, put on a false front and say, oh, that's a great decision, even though you voted against it. You may not agree with the decision, You might look for some opportunity in the future to revisit it, but it's important not to undermine that decision. So a little bit more about collaboration. I've made a list of some of the elements of an effective collaborative relationship. So these are, mostly pretty obvious, but mutual respect, mutual trust, leaving egos behind, being willing to participate. A mayor said this to me. He said, one of the reasons why my council works together so well is that they basically brush off the residue from the last discussion and they don't allow it to infect the next issue. They move on. I apologize. I got my pneumonia shot and my shingles shot yesterday. So I'm about half sick right now, and I do apologize for that. Another element of collaboration is not assuming, what each other's motives are or questioning each other's motives, listening more than talking, coming into the discussion with a positive attitude as opposed to an intent to win or just assuming that you're going to get run over again. Hanging in there with each other even when the going gets rough, and listening with an open mind. Any others that you can think of that I might have missed? A little bit more about collaboration. I think it's important to do a little bit of self-reflection around what the prevailing culture and the governing body currently is and how you might be contributing individually to it. And this is true, especially if your makeup has recently changed, right? Or if you feel as though any member might be feeling like less than an equal participant on the governing body. Sometimes the dynamics happen on this completely subconscious or unintentional level. And so self-reflection is really important. There are some sort of commonly seen barriers to finding common ground. And everybody, who saw this newspaper article, the universal phenomenon of men interrupting women, probably had a sort of a laugh about it because, right, it's one of the common meeting dynamics. But there are so many other meeting dynamics that may be inhibiting full participation. And so newbie versus veteran might be one, older versus younger, where you reside in town might be a dynamic. And so it is important to examine these dynamics because they can create barriers. A little more about trust. Can you really be a team if you don't all trust one another? And there are some obvious ways in which you can undermine trust, like not being truthful or not keeping your commitments as an elected official, communicating in a way that embarrasses or humiliates one of your team members, saying one thing in public and another in private, using others to do your dirty work, right? Orchestrating situations where something is coming out of somebody else's mouth, but they are things that you wanted to say. Questioning others' motives, undermining decisions, taking credit where credit may not be due. I don't know what the situation is in terms of the use of social media within the governing body in Frisco, but in other cities and towns, social media has often become weaponized. And so if you look back at all of the ways that you can undermine trust, it is so easy to do all of those things on social media. And so I would say this is potentially one of the most corrosive areas in terms of undermining trust. And then being perceived as the outlier. This is a 1-hour discussion in itself. And so I would invite you to take a look at the CIRSA and CML Ethics, Liability, and Best Practices Handbook. There is a big article about the outlier. And I would say an outlier is not just somebody who's always on the losing end of a vote, but it's somebody who is actively oppositional to the majority in a way that's calculated to create separation, humiliation, and to hold himself or herself out as the only ethical one, or the only transparent one, or the only one looking out for the citizens, or the only one looking out for the business community. So it's kind of an active practice of separating oneself from the rest in a way that's calculated to try to make the others look bad. So if you haven't yet built a relationship of mutual trust, or if it's been allowed to erode, then there are things that you can do as individuals. So one of the things about marriage and families is that you can't change one another, right? But you can change yourself and your own conduct and the way that you react to others. So these are individual commitments. Listen more than you talk. Do your best to see things from the other person's perspective. Not weaponizing communications in the way that I've described in the previous slides. Giving people the benefit of the doubt. So is this true? I don't know who said this first, but I was struck by its truth. We judge ourselves by our own good intentions, but we judge others by their actions. And so we don't give others the benefit of assuming good faith and best intentions. What else can we do as individuals? Not demonizing others. Meeting people more than halfway in trying to build a bridge. So this requires some individual generosity and vulnerability. But if you meet somebody a little bit more than halfway, then that may be the critical thing to build a bridge. Asking questions before reaching a conclusion about the perspectives of others. Sometimes when people express themselves, they don't come across in a way that you understand them correctly. And so ask questions, paraphrase your understanding to make sure you're understanding them correctly. And then your own body language is so important in terms of communicating things like respect and engagement. And that may be true even if you're not actually feeling it. So don't let your body language add a negative message like frowns or the disgusted look away or just not making eye contact, the crossed arms, the turn back, the eye roll. What else can we do as individuals? The first time that I gave this presentation, I watched this happen. Somebody raised a question and used a word that was very incendiary on that governing body, and it triggered an automatic knee-jerk reaction, which consisted of yelling at that person for 5 or 6 minutes. And so I watched this happen. And then I said to the person who raised the original question, hey, I know you were cut short on your original point. Would you like to come back and make your original point? And at that point, he kind of crossed his arms and said, never mind, literally, never mind. So that was kind of a terrible thing. It was an automatic hair trigger, knee-jerk reaction. People may start yelling, but if you start yelling, then that's just going to raise the volume in the room. So keeping your voice down, even if others may be raising their voices, can be helpful. Searching for points of agreement and emphasizing and building on them. And so related to that is the idea of praising, right? Acknowledging and appreciating when you see somebody making a good effort. Looking for ways to build on a sense of inclusiveness and teamwork, perhaps in a retreat setting. A communication style assessment, I think, is a good way to learn more about one another. Team building exercises, you may feel one way or another about them, but they can be useful too. Experienced members can certainly mentor newer members, model the behavior that reflects the culture that you want in the chambers. Tips and tricks. One retreat that I did, we gathered together a whole bunch of tips and tricks from each member of the council and shared them. And some of them were, very useful to one another, especially the newer members. And then the final point that I want to make is about actual powers and perceived powers. So, of course, you have your actual powers as an elected official, but you also have perceived powers. And those come from the fact that you are viewed as the center of the municipal universe. And you may not think of yourself that way, but believe me, everybody else in the organization does. You are the sun around which everybody else revolves. And so you are constantly being scrutinized, right? How's the weather up there today? How are they getting along? Did he ask a question that was actually kind of a criticism? Your words and actions carry incredible weight because of this perceived power. You may think, hey, I'm just another person asking a question to get more information, right? I'm just another person voicing a comment or a concern. Maybe I'm just making a lighthearted, joking remark. But these words, from the standpoint of the receiver, may be perceived as an order, a sharp, cutting criticism, or a shockingly terrible thing to say. And so what you may have thought was innocuous, right, may be crushing from the standpoint of the receiver of that communication. You are, right, the center of the universe and at the very top of the chain of command. And so this means that for those who are below you in the chain of command, there's not a fair opportunity to question you back, right? Or to call you out or to clap back at you. So things that you say, questions that you ask, particularly in public settings, may be perceived as punching down, right? And you don't want to be looked at as punching down. And another element of that is praise in public, correct in private. There may be times when, right, others in the chain of command deserve correction or criticism, but if it's done in a public meeting, it's going to carry a weight that you may not have intended, and it's going to create pain and consternation that you may not have intended. So as I mentioned before, this is kind of the giant compendium of suggestions, and they may or may not all apply to you. But my hope is that having this as a resource may be of some help to you from time to time, and to help you ensure that your arranged marriage works for you as individuals, the body as a whole, and the citizens that you serve. Let's work on stopping the small discords and discomforts before they turn into big ones. Identify them, do some self-reflection into how you may be contributing positively or negatively to the council work culture, and adapt your behaviors accordingly. And with that, I will stop and see if there are any questions, comments, pushback, etc. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy, so much, and for persevering through what you're going through. I haven't had the shingles shot, but I've heard it's pretty brutal. So thank you for
But it's
hiding
better
that
than
well.
shingles.
It's better than shingles, yeah.
Yeah.
Council questions, thoughts, pushback, as she offered too. Tammy, I think the question I would have, since you offered up some tips and tricks a little bit, but weaving this into, as you know, we're going into a town manager search, and how to kind of weave these two together and take some of this culture and some of these tips and apply that to the coming town manager search we have, and what you would offer in that regard.
Yeah, in that regard, my hope is that the council as a group kind of has some values in place, right? Values about how you interact with one another, how you want to interact with your manager, and vice versa, and how you want your manager to interact with your staff, right? Because those values will then help you evaluate your candidates. I've read a little bit about things that have happened, and it seems like, if there's an incongruity of values, then it's not going to work out well, right? It's going to cause problems, morale issues, and just all kinds of disruption and consternation. So, I do think it starts with the very top, in terms of being able to identify and articulate the values that are important for you as a council, and the values that you want to see, filtering through the entire organization.
Thank you.
Kind of follow up with a question. You talk a lot about sort of our relationship amongst the seven of us, but this is also, a council manager style of government. So can you speak a little bit to the additional relationship that a body like ours has to the manager? So values aside, like, what is that, working relationship look like?
Yeah.
What family member are they? They're kind of weird. Just kidding.
That's a good question. They're certainly not the ultimate parental authority figure, but they reside kind of just below that level, and they may be sort of the family enforcer, so to speak. But, I do think that there's often not enough time spent on the council and the manager articulating the relationship that they want with one another, including some details, right? Some of the conflicts that I've seen that kind of turn into major wounds center around, as an example, council member communications with staff members below the level of the manager, right? The manager has one set of expectations, the council and its members have another set of expectations, and there's just never been any communication and, coming together around, let's figure out how we want that to work. What are you comfortable with? What are you comfortable with? And living with it, right? And so that becomes this constant source of problems, and ultimately can, end up sending people away. So, I think making sure that each of you are on solid ground in terms of those particulars of the relationship is so important. So if I were interviewing, a manager candidate, and I wanted to make sure that the manager was somebody who was comfortable, right, with individual members of the council going to other staff members, I would ask about that, right? Some managers draw a black and white line and say, every issue needs to come through me, right? And there may be good reasons for that. There may be some suspect reasons for that, but it's important, I think, to find out. Does that help at all?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Questions, thoughts for Tammy? Rick, did you have anything? I know you're on the phone. Possibly.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, I just appreciated the collaboration discussion. It reinforces some conversations that we've had individually, that I've had individually with some other council members, which is great to just hear that reinforcement of it. And again, Hunter, I think you hit one of the a topic that I liked is the tips and tricks, and share them, especially as we seat new councils. I think is a great tool that we could bring forward. And then it just, in listening, a lot of this brought me back to the our strategic plan and how we put that in place and have ebbed and flowed with how we've stuck to using that as an individual group decision-making tool, because it built in consistency amongst the group, whether you agreed with it or not. So I appreciated the discussion. Thanks, you guys. And that's what I got.
Awesome. Well, I think, Tammy, I greatly appreciate this and the time and putting this together for us. I think, some of my goals that you definitely hit on and looking forward is just kind of helping us personally on that I'm working on is kind of improving our conversation around the work session and how we can really bring that collaboration in and have that time in the right format. And I think some of your information there will be helpful for me to digest on that. And also we have a lot of changes coming, and I think it's good for all of us currently sitting on the board to hear this and as well as staff. And I know we will use this, as I've learned from the presentation, we'll use this for the newly elected and have them watch this presentation as well coming in. So thank you so much. It was very useful and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep.
Sorry, one more question. You had mentioned, I think you had mentioned perhaps a handbook or something. What sorts of resources can you provide so that we can, we've had the benefit of hearing this presentation. I'm not sure that we'll have it again in May when there's a new council, but what kinds of things can we help bring our future new colleagues along with the same information that we just heard tonight?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that. So number one, the CIRSA.org website does have a page for elected officials with a whole bunch of resources, including publications and articles and presentations that have been recorded. Sam Light is our general counsel, and either he or I are more than happy to come around to Frisco and do newly elected officials training. It's a little bit less on the personal side and more about, some of the legal issues, some of the legal do's and don'ts. And so it might be particularly well suited for newly elected officials. And then the third thing, and I've mentioned this to Diane, but it would be my pleasure and honor to do any kind of follow-up work with you all, especially if you plan to have some kind of retreat format for a future gathering of the council. I would be more than happy to participate, and that's, something that CIRSA does as a service to its members. So hopefully those are some resources that may be of help to you.
Writing notes down for myself. Thank you, Tammy. All right, then I think we are all set. Really appreciate your time and look forward to maybe seeing you again and maybe in person next time. So thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
All right, next item on the agenda for the work session is the 2022 grants presentation. And it will be a little different this year for those watching online. We have not invited all of our recipients into chambers and we have a video. So Deborah, when you're ready. that why we have popcorn?
It's like now I'm trying to figure it out.
And financial resources and other welfare services. This includes $250,000 towards childcare, over $40,000 for High Country Conservation Center's Energy Smart and Resource Wise programs, $50,000 to Summit County Search and Rescue from the general fund. From the Nicotine Tax Fund, we are giving Building Hope $60,000. The Family and Intercultural Resource Center will receive approximately $123,000, and Summit Community Care Clinic will also get around $60,000.
Hi there, this is Dan Fallon with Frisco Town Council, and once again it is our honor and privilege to announce our grant awards to our community partners this year. Along with Mayor Hunter Mortensen and Councilmember Melissa Sherburne and the rest of council, we have awarded tens of thousands of dollars to our community partners who every year really enhance our community and serve at a level that, as a council member with our programs that we typically do every year, we just can't reach. And we count on these partners so much, and we thank them so much for how they engage our community and really connect our community at a fundamental level. Also, I'm pleased to announce once again, and I've worked with Council Member Sherburne every year for the last several years, our College Scholarship Program, where we have tens of thousands of dollars that we have ready for our hardworking, high-achieving high school seniors who are looking forward to some post-secondary education, whether it's trade schools or community college or far-flung college across the globe. Whatever we can do to help them pursue their dreams, we want to honor their achievement and their participation locally and also in collaborating with our community. So I look forward to that, and thank you so much. I wanted to really extend a debt of gratitude to our community partners, because without them, we just really would not reach the people who they reach. So thank you very much. And again, distinct honor and privilege.
Alpenglow Chamber Music Festival, Bethany Immigration Frisco, Blue River Watershed Group, Breck Film Festival, Breckenridge Montessori, Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center, Building Hope, CASA of the Continental Divide, Colorado 14ers Initiative, Colorado Learning Connections.
Thank you, Town of Frisco, for your generous grant for the Opening Opportunities Scholarship Program at Colorado Learning Connections, that's CLC. Thanks to the Town of Frisco, more local students now have access to the academic support and the guidance they need to build confidence and succeed in school. The Opening Opportunities Scholarship Program, that's OOSP for short, provides local students with access to academic support like academic tutoring, after-school support, enrichment, interventions, homeschool support, and much more so that students can learn, grow, and thrive. Thank you, Frisco!
Colorado Mountain College Foundation, Damas Pisces Family Respite, Education Foundation of the Summit, Family and Intercultural Resource Center, Friends of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, Friends of the Dillon Ranger District, High Country Conservation Center, High Country Veterans Adventures, Mountain Dreamers.
Hi, I'm Peter Bakken. I'm the Executive Director of Mountain Dreamers, an immigrant advocacy nonprofit. I'm here to say thanks to the town of Frisco and the town council for the generous grant that you gave us this year. We support immigrants, dreamers, DACA recipients. We help them gain legal work authorization and protection from deportation through immigration legal aid. And I'm happy to say we are now in a new office here in Frisco at the 619 main building. Thank you very much for your support.
Mountain Mentors, Mountain Scholars, National Repertory Orchestra, Northwest Colorado Center for Independence, Open Arms Childcare and Preschool, Rotary Club of Summit County, Smart Bellies.
SOS Outreach, Starting Hearts, Summit Advocates for Victims of Assault, Summit After Prom, Summit County Library, Summit County Mountain Bike Alliance, Summit County Youth, Summit Cove Elementary School, Summit Dance Fund.
Hi, this is Sarah from the Summit Dance Fund. I want to say a huge thank you to the town of Frisco for allowing us to perform with Hazel Miller and sell refreshments to raise funds for the Summit Dance Fund. That allows our dancers to take classes with teachers from around the country, down in Denver, in New York City, anywhere outside of Summit County to further their dance education. It gets super expensive really quickly, so our families are very appreciative of all of the help. Thanks again.
The money from the Summit Dance Fund helps a lot because it just means opportunities for us, because I don't think that we would be able to afford going down to Denver all those weekends. And I mean, it's just so much fun, and I'm so grateful for the support, and I know my family is too.
And we just want to say a huge thanks to the town of Frisco. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Summit Habitat for Humanity, Summit High School, Summit Huts Association, Summit Nordic Ski Club, Summit Public Radio and TV, Summit Tigers American Legion Baseball, Summit Youth Baseball, Summit Youth Orchestra, Summit Youth Sports Inc., Team Summit, The Cycle Effect.
Hello, town of Frisco. My name is Yara Melgarejo. I'm a senior in high school and have been with the Cycle Effect since 7th grade. I'm going to be completely honest. When I first started the Cycle Effect, my self-esteem was so low and I wasn't super into it. I was so terrified and I thought it was too hard for me. My parents made me stay and I was so mad at them, but now I realize it was the best decision I've taken to shape me to be who I am. Being my last year as a high schooler, I've realized a lot of things. I still have growing to do, but the Cycle Effect has shot up my self-esteem, and it has made me realize I am capable of anything. I still have that voice in my head telling me I'll never be good enough, but the Cycle Effect has helped me silence that voice. I understand that with work, commitment, and perseverance, I can really amount to anything. Not only has the Cycle Effect helped me grow my love for myself, but it has allowed me to create friends with other bikers and even the coaches. Thank you for helping me find my community. Your support is truly empowering to me and so many others on my team.
The Peak School, the Summit Foundation, Timberline Adult Day Services.
Thank you.
Women's Resource Center of the Rockies, Youth Entity. Thank you to all of our nonprofits in Summit County that make our community a more inclusive, caring, sustainable, and overall incredible place to live.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for borrowing that idea from whoever you did, and all of staff and everyone and all of our nonprofits. As the video shows and that we said, we could not do it without all of the members of this community coming together to fill those small spots that get overlooked or are underfunded. And so it's with pride that we're able to do what we can to help continue in your success and help us in our community efforts. So thank you all so much. Council, anything else you'd like to say on the grant presentation side? Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on this evening's work session, agenda item number 3, and that is an update and a conversation around the town manager recruitment.
Good evening, council. Nice to see all of you, and I'd like to say thank you also to Brad with SCTV and Veronica for putting that video together. That was awesome, and thanks to council support here. I know there's a lot of individuals who are still online, so I know that the video will be put online at some point in time here as well. So if you did not get a chance to see it, you will have an opportunity to see it as well. So thank you to each and every one of you. So I'll move on to our next topic, which is the town manager search. So as you saw, I am taking over this position right here today for Olinda, who is on vacation. So she has done a tremendous amount of work regarding the search for the new town manager. So want to give her credit where it is definitely due. She is on a well-deserved vacation at this point in time. So I'll be filling in as best as I can. At the end of January, the council agreed to hire a recruitment firm to find our next new town manager. At that time, we had a list of 16 different firms. Starts off pretty big, right? Working with CML, working with other communities that had hired town managers, and really looking at that list and then narrowing that list down to 6. Reached out to all 6 of those firms, and then we got responses from 4 of them. The 6 that we had reached out to, as was indicated in your staff analysis here, it had looking definitely at the financial cost of doing this, looking at the longevity of the recruitment, looking at their history of Colorado, and really trying to find a recruitment firm that would have mountain town recruitment experience. Looking at previous city, town, and county manager successful hires, looking at the longevity of their placements, the estimated time to fill the position, a service guarantee as well, the responsiveness to the staff inquiries. Olinda did spend many hours calling all these individuals, talking to them, and getting responses back from them as well. Really looked at what that partnership would be like with the town council as well. Meeting with the town council, their availability to do that, as well as with stakeholders. And then really facilitating the whole process. The interview process definitely is quite the elaborate process, as we have seen before, and they would take on quite that role in doing all of that. Also looking at the background checks, the reference checks, the internet and media search checks, what do those organizations utilize? And then what would they do after the individual was placed into this position, as well as any other information that we had. Quite a bit of reference checks went out, we're done with this as well. We got to a point then too, narrowed it down to two different finalists, from that 4 down to 2. And that's what we're here for today, is for your review of those 2. We've narrowed it down to GovHR, as well as then Strategic Government Resources, SGR. In addition to Olinda doing the bulk of this work, both myself and Leslie have been a part of this as well. And it's open for discussion at this point in time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone's efforts in the process. So council, essentially what we need to give this evening is just direction to move forward with one of these 2 proposed groups. So I would see if anybody has any specific questions for Diane or staff on anything that stood out, concerns, anything that you want to bring up from what you saw in all their presentation, their the reports their descriptions that they provided. Go ahead, Andy.
2 questions. One, if there was one standout above and beyond, would you still have brought us 2?
It's a good question. I think, when we started with all 4 of them are very qualified. Getting it down to 2 was quite the effort. And I would say, yes, both of these are good firms, very well qualified.
Can you talk about the references?
I can, absolutely. So we did talk to both individuals from GovHR as well as from SGR, the Strategic Government Resources. From Strategic Government, what we had is one of the references was actually a recent placement of theirs as well. So we talked to the individual who went through the process with SGR. So they actually were part of the entire process. So what was that experience like? How did they feel SGR did, their level of professionalism, kind of guiding them through the whole process, as well as then the HR manager who facilitated that whole process. Was exceptional in terms of the references for those. Very, very well received. Also had a nice reference. This came from Fort Collins, and the reference was very positive for SGR, and really talked a lot about their ability to hire at the executive level. So the level that we are looking for this recruitment. For Gov HR, I think you saw there was quite a bit of information that was contained within the packet that Olinda included as well. Good references. Definitely had quite a bit of experience, has experience within the mountain community as well. The individual who would be our contact is someone that we have met before as well. So that, I mean, that's the bit I can speak to it.
Have something, Andy? That was a big sigh. Go for it.
They're both obviously fully capable. They've both placed many people into similar positions. You know, it comes down to how they presented the information to us, you know, solely. It's really a flip of a coin. I probably like SGR is better, just in how it was, you know, delivered.
Yeah.
Both seem capable, though. I mean,
Is 18 months a big deal? An 18-month guarantee? It seems to be to me, and it seems to be the biggest distinguishing factor.
Meaning GovHR was less.
Yeah,
12 months.
SGR is guaranteeing us 18 months. The other group is 12 months.
I did see that, and I hadn't thought about that, or but yeah, that is interesting. It's a good commitment.
Hey guys, I was curious about, Andy, thanks for bringing that up. I was curious, what is that guaranteeing? Like, what does that mean?
So one of the references that we've actually talked, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, does that mean like the candidate stays for 12 to 18 months, or if we seat a candidate within 18 to 12 months, or if we need to do another recruitment within 12 to 18 months, they'll do another one for us? I'm just not sure what they're guaranteeing.
What you just said, the last bit there, Councilmember Incan, is correct. So should this candidate not work out within either that 12-month period or the 18-month period, we would have the ability to work with this company again on another search.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification on that. Cool. That's what I got for now.
Rick, since you were on, were you leaning any particular direction, or do you want hear more conversation or weigh in and more?
You know, I would tend to, when I look at who they've both done work in Colorado, they both have plenty of experience. I'm just looking at like-minded municipalities as far as what their main source of funding mechanism is, I guess. And they're both, again, I was hoping that was going to be the deciding factor, but when you break it all down, the one has more work in Colorado, but there's also like-minded municipalities within there. And then really on the smaller number of placed in Colorado, wow, most of those were super like-minded municipalities. So when it came down to presentation, I would agree with Andy Held on the SGR side of things.
Thanks, Rick. And I think you kind of said you didn't know, you couldn't put your finger on it. They're both amazing, but I just felt I've had a comfort level with SGR and just they're reading their presentation. And I think Diane, hearing some of their reference checks noting they're striving to find true executive level placement. I think that if that's what came to mind when checking references, that seems pretty enticing to me. So I would lean that way, but I think we can't go wrong in this. But since we do have to give direction, I think at this point I would be in support of that going towards SGR. But love to hear any other thoughts or concerns or.
Hunter, I had one more thing actually on the timeline. Specific to, they're both similar, but on the SGR side of things, we're looking at a 14-week, and I haven't done the math, and I should have. But does all of this align with us potentially? It doesn't. It actually doesn't at all align with us potentially seating this person with the new council members. We'd be a few months out, or at least weeks out.
Correct. For either proposal. Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
They're both in the almost same timeline. So.
Cool.
I'm in the same space as everybody else, and you look at both of those, and I think back a few months. I want to replay that, but it'd be interesting to see where we would have been. But for me, it came down to on the questions, and the one answer that SGR gave versus GovHR was what is the process from now to go live with advertising, and the way that they kind of they filled in a lot of unasked, unspoken, but very relevant kind of perspective just in that one answer to me. Just was kind of to move me in that direction. I really liked their answer there. And that's where, to me, it made me want to work with them. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was thoughtful and inclusive. So, but again, it wasn't much of a needle move in that direction. It was a feather on the scale. So it really is. But I would go with this job.
Jesse, do you have a feather to add to the scale?
No, I think for me, it's just, going back to Tammy's presentation and really just regardless of who we go with, we need to, drive the values discussion and who they're recruiting. So I think we need to make sure that we have that conversation with our recruiters as well to make sure that they're, on the same page. So I think it's incumbent upon us to really tell whoever we go with, exactly what it is that we're looking for. And I think maybe we need to have that specific discussion next. So I would support SGR.
Sounds good. I think we will proceed that way. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Knowing it down, and Leslie, thank you for your efforts and contributions as well. That appears to be the end of our work session agenda. So I think we have dinner again
in buffet format.
With no masks. So for those online, again, if you were tuning in to see the nonprofit grant video, we'll post it online. And thank you all for your work. And we will be back at 7 o'clock for the regular meeting.
Play the video again.
Sure, if you want to. Yeah. Well, yeah. Is there any way to mute the sound in here, but not on the world?
Don't
or
think so.
Okay. I'm fine hearing myself again. Go for it. Oh, some of the sweets and stuff. Hello, my name is Hunter Mortensen. I'm the mayor of Frisco, Colorado. I want to take this moment to thank all of our 2022 nonprofit grant recipients and everyone who applied. The past 2 years have been extremely difficult on all of the local nonprofit community. Events have been canceled, important fundraising opportunities haven't been had, And yet the community rallies behind these organizations to make sure that their success is paramount to their continued operation. I'm proud this year to be able to represent the town of Frisco in giving out our 2022 nonprofit grants to help meet our strategic priorities for the council and to make this community stronger. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Sherburne, Town of Frisco Council member, and this year through our grant program, we are distributing approximately $80,000 of discretionary funds plus an additional $30,000 of in-kind contributions to 51 local nonprofits. In addition to the grant program, the Town of Frisco is awarding larger donations to organizations that provide crucial community services such as physical and mental health resources, food security and financial resources, and other welfare services. This includes $250,000 towards childcare, over $40,000 for High Country Conservation Center's Energy Smart and Resource Wise programs, $50,000 to Summit County Search and Rescue from the general fund. From the Nicotine Tax Fund, we are giving Building Hope $60,000. The Family and Intercultural Resource Center will receive approximately $123,000, and Summit Community Care Clinic will also get around $60,000.
Hi there, this is Dan Fallon with Frisco Town Council, and once again it is our honor and privilege to announce our grant awards to our community partners this year. Along with Mayor Hunter Mortensen and Councilmember Melissa Sherburne and the rest of council, we have awarded tens of thousands of dollars to our community partners who every year really enhance our community and serve at a level that, as a council member with our programs that we typically do every year, we just can't reach. And we count on these partners so much, and we thank them so much for how they engage our community and really connect our community at a fundamental level. Also, I'm pleased to announce once again, and I've worked with Councilmember Sherburne every year for the last several years, our College Scholarship Program, where we have tens of thousands of dollars that we have ready for our hardworking, high-achieving high school seniors who are looking forward to some post-secondary education, whether it's trade schools or community college or far-flung college across the globe. Whatever we can do to help them pursue their dreams, we want to honor their achievement and their participation locally and also in collaborating with our community. So I look forward to that, and thank you so much. I wanted to really extend a debt of gratitude to our community partners, because without them, we just really would not reach the people who they reach. So thank you very much. And again, distinct honor and privilege.
Alpenglow Chamber Music Festival, Bethany Immigration Frisco, Blue River Watershed Group, Breck Film Festival, Breckenridge Montessori, Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center, Building Hope, Casa of the Continental Divide, Colorado 14ers Initiative, Colorado Learning Connections.
Thank you, Town of Frisco, for your generous grant for the Opening Opportunities Scholarship Program at Colorado Learning Connections, that's CLC. Thanks to the Town of Frisco, more local students now have access to the academic support and the guidance they need to build confidence and succeed in school. The Opening Opportunities Scholarship Program, that's OOSP for short, provides local students with access to academic support like academic tutoring, after-school support, enrichment, interventions, homeschool support, and much more so that students can learn, grow, and thrive. Thank you, Frisco!
Colorado Mountain College Foundation, Thomas Pisces Family Respite, Education Foundation of the Summit, Family and Intercultural Resource Center, Friends of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, Friends of the Dillon Ranger District, High Country Conservation Center, High Country Veterans Adventures, Mountain Dreamers.
Hi, I'm Peter Bakken. I'm the Executive Director of Mountain Dreamers, an immigrant advocacy nonprofit.
Yeah, so we went to,
I'm here to say thanks to the Town of Frisco and the Town Council for the generous grant that you gave us this year. We support immigrants, dreamers, DACA recipients. We help them gain legal work authorization. and protection from deportation through immigration legal aid. And I'm happy to say we are now in a new office here in Frisco at the 619 main building. Thank you very much for your support.
Mountain Mentors, Mountain Scholars, National Repertory Orchestra, Northwest Colorado Center for Independence, Open Arms Childcare and Preschool, Rotary Club of Summit County, Smart Bellies.
SOS Outreach, Starting Hearts, Summit Advocates for Victims of Assault, Summit After Prom, Summit County Library, Summit County Mountain Bike Alliance, Summit County Youth, Summit Cove Elementary School,
Right.
Summit Dance Fund. Hi, this is Sarah from the Summit Dance Fund. I want to say a huge thank you to the town of Frisco for allowing us to perform with Hazel Miller and sell refreshments to raise funds for the Summit Dance Fund. That allows our dancers to take classes with teachers from around the country, down in Denver, in New York City, anywhere outside of Summit County to further their dance education. It gets super expensive really quickly, so our families are very appreciative of all of the help. Thanks again.
The money from the Summit Dance Fund helps a lot because it just means opportunities for us, because I don't think that we would be able to afford going down to Denver all those weekends. And I mean, it's just so much fun, and I'm so grateful for the support, and I know my family is too.
And we just want to say a huge thanks to the town of Frisco. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Summit Habitat for Humanity, Summit High School, Summit Huts Association, Summit Nordic Ski Club, Summit Public Radio and TV, Summit Tigers American Legion Baseball, Summit Youth Baseball, Summit Youth Orchestra, Summit Youth Sports Inc., Team Summit, The Cycle Effect,
Hello, town of Frisco. My name is Yara Megarejo. I'm a senior in high school and have been with the Cycle Effect since 7th grade. I'm going to be completely honest. When I first started the Cycle Effect, my self-esteem was so low and I wasn't super into it. I was so terrified and I thought it was too hard for me. My parents made me stay and I was so mad at them, but now I realize it was the best decision I've taken to shape me to be who I am. Being my last year as a high schooler, I've realized a lot of things. I still have growing to do, but the Cycle Effect has shot up my self-esteem and it has made me realize I am capable of anything. I still have that voice in my head telling me I'll never be good enough, but the Cycle Effect has helped me silence that voice. I understand that with work, commitment, and perseverance, I can really amount to
Everybody's
anything.
standing around saying.
Not only has the Cycle Effect helped me grow my love for myself, but it has allowed me to create friends with other bikers and even the coaches. Thank you for helping me find my community. Your support is truly empowering to me and so many others on my team.
The Peak School, the Summit Foundation, Timberline Adult Day Services,
Thank you.
And if we can't fill that, you know.
Women's Resource Center of the Rockies, Youth Entity. Thank you to all of our nonprofits in Summit County that make our community a more inclusive, caring, sustainable, and overall incredible place to live.
Muted, Hunter.
Excellent. Thank you. Are we recording?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I see it is 7 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Frisco Town Council. First on the agenda this evening is public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment may do so now. Please be topic specific and keep your comments to no longer than 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record. If you're joining us online and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. We'll call on you, and anyone in chambers wanting to make public comment. Seeing none online. Deborah? Nope. Seeing no public comment, I'll close public comment and on to mayor and council comments.
Got some comments. We're gonna on March 8th consider a recycling proposal, pay as you throw, and universal recycling ordinance. And as the community looks at ways to increase our waste diversion, one of the major things that we're not really looking at right now is construction and demolition waste. And I just wanted to flag a project that's happening in Frisco right now, where Summit Suites is going to take considerable time and effort to divert, upcycle, or donate over 5 tons of ceramics, toilets primarily, 5 tons of e-waste, 5 tons of scrap metal from various objects within the hotel, 200 mattresses, and over 30 windows. And I just want to give them a shout out because it's not easy to do that and take the time when you could just demo the whole thing. And that's really a significant effort. So they're going to do that through a company called Vert Sites, and we just encourage people to keep an eye out on how they're doing and give them a pat on the back. So thank you, Summit Suites.
Wow. Council comments. All right, seeing none. Move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Been moved to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Burley. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Aronson. Any discussion on the motion? Can you call the question, please?
Mortensen.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Burley. Fallon. Held.
Yes.
Incan. Absent. Sherburne. Absent.
Thank you. Next item is agenda item number 1, and this is the first reading of ordinance 22-02, an ordinance amending the 2021 annual budget by revising certain revenues. I'll open up the public hearing. Welcome, Leslie.
Hi. Well, I have to, good evening, Mayor and Council, and I have to start off by saying I am so busted because in these ordinances, I clearly used a template that I previously used at the town of Breckenridge and forgot to correct that it will be the town of Frisco Council that will amend our budget. So we will get that fixed up in the second reading of these ordinances. So that said, the charter of the town of Frisco does say that any appropriations will be adopted by ordinance. So you will see 2 ordinances in your packet to adopt some supplemental appropriations. The first one, ordinance 2202, is to adopt some supplemental appropriations to the 2021 budget. These are pretty minor and things that we had previously discussed regarding the budget stabilization reserve. And now that we are in a more understood place with the pandemic, transferring that back to the capital fund, as well as the COVID employee rent relief reallocation that we had discussed previously. In addition to that ordinance in your packet, you also have ordinance 2203, which is some supplemental appropriations to the 2022 budget. These items are all things that would be rolled over from the 2021 budget. So they were projects that were previously included in the 2021 budget and were planned to do at that time, but unfortunately did not occur. And so these are mostly capital projects. There is also the Housing Locals Pilot Program, as well as social equity outreach. So staff wishes to continue these items in 2022, which requires adding those appropriations to the budget. At the time that these were adopted, any tie-ins to the strategic plan would have been discussed at that point in time. So they do all meet at least one of the goals adopted in this town's strategic plan.
So it is the recommendation of staff to adopt both of these ordinances and amend the 2021 and 2022 budget.
Any questions? Any public comment this evening on this particular agenda item? Seeing none, I was hoping that you brought some of Breck's budget with you and that's why that was in. So that's not the case. But I guess not. So back
I'm
to.
sorry. You'll have to rely on
That
Jesse.
would have
now.
been nice. All right. Perhaps a motion on this agenda.
Question for
Yeah.
council, can we do this both together or one at a time? Yeah. Okay, so one at a time?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve on first reading ordinance 22-02 and ordinance amending the 2021 annual budget by revising certain revenues.
And move to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Burley. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Held. Thank you, Amy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Call the question, please.
Aronson.
Yes.
Burley.
Yes.
Fallon. Held.
Yes.
Incan. Absent. Sherburne. Absent. Mortensen.
Yes. Thank you. Next item. Tried to jump ahead, but we weren't allowed. So agenda item number 2 is first reading of ordinance 22-03, an ordinance amending the 2022 annual budget by revising certain revenues. You were jumping up. Yep.
Yep.
Leslie, we just, any other question, anything to add? No. And there any public comment on this agenda item number 2? Hearing none, I'll close public comment. And a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve on first reading ordinance 22-03 and ordinance amending the 2022 annual budget by revising certain revenues.
To approve by Mayor Pro Tem Burley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Aronson. Is there any discussion on the motion? Call the question, please.
Certainly. Burley.
Yes.
Fallon. Held. Incan. Absent. Sherburne. Absent. Mortensen.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Efficiency at work. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3 this evening is the employee recruitment and retention non-monetary incentives. Hearing turn it over to Diane and Mindy. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. You ready?
I'm ready.
Is that it?
Yep.
It's my first time up here. Give me a moment, please. I can't even see it though. I just can't see. Oh, there, you know what I mean? I can't see it in there.
It's right there. Yep, you got it.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Deb, do you have the, what's it called? The keyboard? Deb, do you have the keyboard up here too? Just to
Oh,
move
yeah.
it forward.
It's underneath. So if you open that, there's a drawer right here.
Oh, thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you again. So once again, I am filling in tonight for Olinda. I'm not really sure if I can fill in for her or not, but I will do my absolute best to do that. I'd also like to thank Mindy for being here tonight. Mindy, as many of you know, is our HR manager and has graciously agreed to help go through some of these incentives with the council tonight so that, especially if there's any specific questions that you might have. I'd also like to thank everyone behind me. All the department heads have been instrumental in going through all of this information as well, have given some great input. And so we'll hopefully have a good discussion tonight. So this is titled Recruitment and Retention Phase 2. So your first question might be, what happened to Phase 1? It's a legit question. I get it. So let me take you through this a little bit. The process, right? Phase 1 is what we're referring to as the compensation study. I think you've heard quite a bit about this compensation study. This study is in the works at this time. We're hopeful we will have some results coming within the next couple of months, but that is definitely a piece that we like to refer to as phase one. That's the big one, right? All about the pay. Phase two is what we're talking about tonight, also known as incentives. Many words have been used instead of incentives. I'm going to try to stick my best to using the word incentives tonight, but I apologize if I mess that one up in any way. And how do you determine these incentives? What do we do, right? We learn from, and whether or not are we providing the best incentives. So we talk to all of our employees when they leave the town of Frisco. We also had a great brainstorming meeting in the fall with our staff. And then we recently put out a staff survey. We really wanted to hear from our employees to know what motivates them. What is it other than pay and other than our benefits? What is that? And then phase three is benefits. And so that's a bigger topic, right? And that's one that you will see again, right? And this is when you're talking about things that have a bigger budgetary impact. So whether that be healthcare benefits, whether that be the discussion we've started to have about the police department having take-home vehicles, cost of living adjustments, those type of things, those are bigger ones. We're not going to touch on those tonight. So trying to keep our terms straight. Benefits is those, incentives are what we're talking about here. The goal, ultimate goal, right, of course, is to attract and retain the best employees that we can. Ultimate goal here. And how do we do that, right? We pay them well, we have these incentives, and we've got these great benefits. All of this plays into how in the world do we recruit and retain the best employees? You may also be asking, why are we here today? It is February at this point in time. Well, on March 1st, we open up all of our jobs for our summer seasonal positions. And so we know the importance, one, of getting the right people early. The longer you wait to try and get these summer seasonal employees, the harder it is. Many of them, especially the good ones, right? They get those jobs right away and they're gone. So we want to be right there at the top recruiting as quickly as possible. And so that's why we're here today. We want to talk, there's one question I'm going to ask you about pay, and then the rest will be about these incentives. There's also, you've seen in the staff memo, some quotes that were pulled, that Olinda had pulled from some different HR resources. A lot of those have to do with turnover, incentives, pay. Shouldn't be anything new. I know everyone is aware of this, and everyone who is out there sees it, right? There are help wanted signs everywhere. We're all experiencing this together. It's definitely a challenging time for all of us. So the questions that we have for council tonight. The first one you'll see, and this was all in your council packet as well in the staff memo, is council supportive of moving the current base hiring rate wage from $15 an hour to $17 an hour for frontline positions. I know this is not incentives. This goes back to that compensation, but this is an answer we'd like to get from you tonight. It is definitely going to be important for us in terms of recruiting for our summer seasonal positions. As well as just remaining competitive. You did also see as part of the packet, Human Resources was able to pull competitive wages for a variety of different entities across the county. And so you can see the recommendation to go to $17 an hour is in line with what other places are paying as well. The next, this one does have a financial cost that was also in the council packet. Summer alone, we're looking at about a $21,000 increase is what that would account for, from going to 15 to that $17 an hour. The question that does always come up about this as well is, well, what does that mean for everyone else? How do you handle compression issues? We totally get it. We're well aware of it. Ideally, what we're looking at is that will be handled through the compensation study. So once we get the results back from that study, that too will look at everyone across the board. And will some positions need to be adjusted as a result of that compensation study? Yes. Will all positions? Most likely not, but we will adjust that at that time as well. We had a good conversation earlier this week. I guess I realize it's Tuesday, so that would have been yesterday, about what is a livable wage in Frisco? And that's a really, really good question. I think it was Thad maybe who had given us a reference of MIT doing a study on what is a livable wage in Summit County. And it came out, if you just Google it, because that's how we all are experts at this point in time, right? Comes up at $17.21 an hour. Now, you can argue, is that high? Is that low? What does that mean for someone who has a family, who has kids? Of course, it jumps significantly. Other towns have looked at what is a livable wage. Other entities, I know for a while, FERC was looking at that as well. We don't have a clear answer on that, but what I can tell you from that information that we got, that 1721 is a published livable wage at this point in time. So that $17 is falling in line with that as well. The next question that we'll have for you tonight has to do with incentives. And this is the town council supportive of the incentives available to staff based on job status? Job status means, are you full-time, part-time, seasonal, variable hours? So this is what our current philosophy is. We do have our incentives based upon full-time individuals get X, Y, and Z. If you are a seasonal person, you might get something else. Many of those incentives are very much the same. Others, there's a little bit of a difference between a full-time employee versus a seasonal employee. The third question we'll have you consider tonight is town council supportive of incentives available to staff based on job location or department? And so this has to do with if you work in a certain area, if you work at the adventure park, should you have some incentive that might be different than if you work here at town hall? This has to do with the whole idea that at times not one size fits all for everything that we do. We have a blend of all these different positions with the town. And so we'd like to get your feedback on that as well, in terms of some of those incentives being different based upon where you actually, which area you work in. Just so we're all clear on some definitions for moving forward, these are our current definitions of our employees. Full-time year-round staff, these are individuals who work 40 hours per week. Year-round part-time staff, these are individuals who work less than 20 hours per week, no more than 1456 hours per year. Year-round variable hours, these sometimes are known as individuals who are on call, and not on call as if you were working for the water department, but on call as if there's really no regular schedule. So you're an employee, but you may pick up a shift every now and then. We call you in because there's an opening on a Saturday, we need to cover that shift. So we do have those employees as well. And then we have seasonal full-time and we have seasonal part-time. Any questions about the status there? Okay. So as I had mentioned, one of the things that we did is we asked our employees give us your feedback. What is it that, what motivates you? We really wanted to hear from our employees. What does this look like? So we actually got a really good response. We put out a survey, and within a short period of time, we got 68% of our full-time year-round employees responded, and 44% of our seasonal as well as the variable hours employees responded. So that, for us, it's a really good one because it was a pretty quick turnaround time as well. And here were the top 10 most used incentives for full-time year-round. There should be no surprise here, right? The Public Works wash bay. Jeff can attest to this. Every time that thing goes down, I think he probably gets more phone calls than he would like to admit. Yeah. Yeah, so these are in order, right? So we always hear this, please don't take away my wash bay. The free Nordic Center pass, the free trash and composting. That one's a huge one as well, as we all know. We 8 friends and family tubing sessions, 30% off the marina rentals as well as merchandise. We do get government discounts for Verizon and Sprint. We do get a free Copper Mountain day ticket voucher. That was a new one that was introduced this year with our relationship with Copper. We do offer Frisco resident pricing for our employees for fun club and youth programs. We also offer 30% off the Nordic skiing and rental for friends and family. And then as an employee, you can go to the Tubing Hill whenever you like. So if you as an individual would like to take a run down the Tubing Hill, feel free to do so. So it's there for you, just you. So you get 8 friends and family passes, but you can go anytime you want. The top 10 most used incentives. Now, I know these things up high are very confusing at times, but this is year-round part-time, variable hours, seasonal full-time, seasonal part-time, just as a reminder there. They really like the free Nordic Center pass, the free Copper Mountain season pass, the free employee tubing. They too like that wash bay over at Public Works. Also like the 8 friends and family tubing sessions, the free trash and composting, the Silverthorne Rec Center discounts, 30% off the marina retail and merchandise, 30% off Nordic skiing and rentals, and free Nordic rentals. Hopefully no surprises there. So we also asked our staff about a philosophy regarding incentives and where they really fell with this and what that really looked like. And not surprising, this was very, this is what we're currently doing. Currently, all incentives are available to employees based on job status, with a few department-specific incentives. When we asked our staff this question, over 40% of them said, this is it. This is what they like. This is what we've been doing. Now, that's not to say that, could we change that? Does that look different for some of them? That's all they've ever known as well. But if you take a look even at this, some departments having specific incentives, we've realized over time, we have to be very competitive with our neighbors as well. So for instance, at the adventure park, if you work there as a Tubing Hill attendant, you get a copper ski pass for the season. We do that because we realize we need to be competitive with the ski area. We're recruiting the same employees to either work at Copper or to work with us. At Copper, you get the ski pass. So we do offer that as an incentive for employees working at the Tubing Hill. We did ask in this question as well about a cafeteria plan. And I know we talked a little bit about a cafeteria plan. I've had some discussions about that as well. The feedback from employees was that less than a quarter of them would be supportive of a cafeteria plan. And that's one way to look at it, right? Okay, so not a lot of support. Did a lot of them know about it or know what that means? But there's probably a lot of ways you can interpret that. But it's also the cafeteria plans tend to be, the ones that we've seen tend to be very successful when you roll them out as part of an open enrollment process. So we do our open enrollment process in the fall every year. Human Resources does a great job coordinating every aspect of this, and you pick your benefits again, you sign up for flex spending account, you sign up for health savings accounts, you sign up for a variety of things. You allocate your money in different ways. And so as part of that, successful cafeteria plans have also done it at that time. So you would sign up for the same type of thing. What is it that you would like to put, what incentives would you like to spend your money on, essentially is what that would look like. So just a little background on where that cafeteria plan idea was, or where you would like it to be. We also asked our employees, what incentives would you like to see? What else is out there? And so this is our full-time year-round employee. There is support for a 4-day work week. There is support for a work from home office blend. So I'm sure not a lot of this is surprising, right? The pandemic has changed a lot of this. Industry pro forms, so discounts on some type of recreational items. Winter boat or trailer storage. Summer trailer storage and or rack storage for personal use. And this, as a clarifying point, this is for your own boat, your own boat. It's not like you get this and you can give it away to someone or something like that. It would be for your own boat. Free paddle sport rentals, which we already do this, but it definitely rose up again as that was important to our staff. The free 2-hour pontoon rental or the fishing boat rental, lots of support for that. And then an unpaid sabbatical. So folks would like to have a little bit of a break, take a little bit of vacation. The top incentive requests for, once again, our year-round part-time employees, variable hours, seasonal full-time and seasonal part-time included. They also supported a 4-day work week. I'm not sure where, how, but that's okay. That came up there. Also wanting the industry pro forms, these discounts on these recreation items. They were interested in Copper Creek golf discounts. So if you work, have a summer seasonal job, let's say, could they get on the golf course at the Copper at a discounted rate? And then also a Copper pass for all employees, so a winter pass. Employee incentive. So in your council packet, you received a pretty big Excel document that had all kinds of incentives listed. And I could go through all of those in these slides, but I also realized that might not be very productive, or it might be challenging to follow in many ways. So I've tried to sum up as best as possible these incentives that we've looked at in terms of which ones to keep, which ones to update, which ones to add. So for these incentives to keep, we're looking at and they should go in order of what you had on your spreadsheet as well. So if you're following along, you should be able to follow these as well. Would definitely recommend keeping the Frisco Nordic Center pass for the employees and the families, and then the ability to add on the Breckenridge Gold Run Nordic Center or the Breckenridge Nordic Center for an additional cost. Nordic rentals available Monday through Friday. Nordic group lessons for employees. Remember, these all have little like things with them too, right? There has to be a lesson that is going out. There has to be an opening in that lesson. So there's a lot of additional things with these, but these are just, you get the gist of it with all of this. Unlimited Tubing Hill session access, wanting to keep that. The 8 friends and family has gone over quite well and gives us the ability to have our employees using the Tubing Hill, talking about the Tubing Hill, getting friends and family out there. Discounted Copper Mountain Ski Pass. The Copper Mountain Exchange Voucher Program. So 2 different ones, right? We do a discounted copper ski pass. You can be part of the, it's like a loan program that we do as well, correct? Like an upfront program to get a copper pass so you can afford it as well. For the marina, the paddle sport rentals, definitely have heard that folks really do enjoy going out on those. The 2-hour pontoon fishing boat rental, cost plus shipping on paddle boats, as well as parts, if you have your own boat. Use of the Marina Service yard. So once again, this isn't just anyone who can go in there and use the yard. You would have to have an appointment. You have to go through a checklist with our service manager, make sure you're all cleared to do that. In keeping with the things that we recommend keeping, these are for all staff at this point in time. Where the little note is here is that the variable hours or on call, we're looking at changing that a little bit and seeing how we should define on call differently or what the expectation was. So if you're an on-call employee, should the incentives be a little bit different because you're not necessarily working as much, or should it be an incentive to get you to work more? So on this one, right, the free vaccination clinics, these are great. As Tammy can attest to tonight, getting that shingle vaccination was probably very, very nice for her. Free use of the town hall's dumpsters and compost, the Got Gas program. If you don't know what this one is, this is a incentive program to utilize some type of alternative transportation as opposed to your own vehicle going to and from work. So you do it X amount of times, you turn it in, and you get a nice coupon, a discount, a gift card. Yeah, thank you. Silverthorne Recreation Center discount program, admission to our Town of Frisco events by a lottery. So if you want to participate in a race or some type of an event, we offer that up as well. Recommend keeping the employee recognition and celebrations. Please don't get rid of the free use of the Public Works wash bay. And this one is now also use of the work bay. And this is same concept as over at the marina with the service yard, provided that you know what you are doing, you go at certain times, the staff who is there feels comfortable with what you are doing, you can work on your car there. It's not just for everyone to show up and say, hey, I know what I'm doing, and I really don't. So there are some rules around that as well. Frisco resident pricing and priority for Frisco Fun Club and programs, the government discount on Verizon and Sprint wireless, discounts to Elitch Gardens, season passes, parking, and meal deals. We have a dog and cat at work program. Now remember, this is for our non-facing guests and non-safety concern areas. So if you recall, there have been dogs here at Town Hall wandering around. I have not seen a cat yet, but I'm just waiting for the day a cat will enter. And then of course, professional development and training opportunities. Last one, this is for full-time year-round employees, just full-time year-round employees, incentives to look at to keep. The Ski Pass Loan Assistance Program, the use of the Public Works Bay for the personal cars, the computer loan being interest-free there, and a tuition loan assistance program. And then looking at incentives that we have updated. This is for all full-time year-round part-time, seasonal full-time, and seasonal part-time. These I'm going to quickly go through because everything on here is a 50% off. It was at 30%. The recommendation would be to move that to 50%. as well as to have in there the end of day boat rentals. This is updated because the end of day boat rentals would mean the last couple hours of the day, but not after hours boat rentals when we're closed. New incentives: full-time year-round employees, part-time year-round, seasonal full-time, and seasonal part-time. Recommending to move to 50% off Nordic ski lessons for your dependents. Might as well get them out there and learn how to ski as well. 50% off your Frisco Adventure Park tubing once you've utilized all your 8 other vouchers. Cost plus shipping on Nordic gear. Free mooring for personal use. So this would be as a drawing. You would have to be full-time year-round, and there'd be 2 drawings per summer. So meaning that if you had a boat and wanted to have a free mooring and you didn't necessarily work at the marina, say you worked here at Town Hall, but you wanted to be out there, we would do 2 free drawings, put your name in, and have that available to whoever wanted to take advantage of that. 50% off our food at the Day Lodge. If you haven't tried it, I would highly recommend it. We've got some great hot dogs, some chips, some candy. It's amazing. And 50% off. I mean, it's pretty cheap. Working Advantage. This is new, right? So this is a program. It is a employee discount program for seating and ticket discounts for things like it's theme parks, sporting events, movies. Pretty cool program. Advanced auto parts discount. Thank you to Jeff and his team for discounts over at Advanced Auto Parts. And then a free tire disposal program as well. So the tires on your vehicle. So those will be the ones that we'd recommend as new. Then I'll talk a little bit about department specific examples. And so these are examples of incentive offerings at other businesses. So things that you tend to see overall, right? We have a lot of conversation about golf, meaning that a lot of times individuals who work at a golf course, they are passionate about golf. They are attracted to working there in order to retain them. Many times they get a free golf pass. That's how you get them to stay there. They play there, they enjoy it. And then other individuals who work for the same company, if they are non-golf employees, they get discounts or they can come free after a certain time or get punch cards. Restaurant employees, they get many times there's a free shift meal associated with working at a restaurant. And then if you don't work at the restaurant, employees, they receive a discount. Some of these are also from the research that we pulled from A-Basin as well as from Copper Mountain. Retail employees, many times those working in those positions get deep discounts on the actual merchandise. You want them to use it. You want them to understand it. You also want them to speak highly of it and be able to sell it. So they get some good discounts on that as well. If you don't work in the retail world of things, you receive less of a discount. Ski shop employees many times get free rentals, and then non-rental employees get discounts on those rentals. Over at Copper, the transportation employees, they get a free shift meal. They get a pretty steep sign-on end of season bonus. But if you don't work for transportation, you do not. The department-specific incentives that we currently either have in place here or would like to keep or looking at a little bit differently here, right? The Peninsula Recreation Area. So this is for our Tubing Hill attendants, folks who work out at the Nordic Center. You get a free Copper pass. Once again, right, trying to compete with the ski area. We just added this one in, free monthly dinners. And so these are your family dinners. And so we do these, right now we're doing them almost every other week. It's like having a shift meal, because I know I just spoke very highly of the food out at the adventure park, but sometimes it's nice to get a little bit of a bigger meal as part of what that could mean after your shift is over. Oh, sorry, wrong way. And then we just also put in place $25 Safeway or Walmart gift cards, once again, to incentivize folks to come to work 5 days over the course of a 7-day period, and you get a $25 gift card, which once again goes towards that shift meal concept. The last two I say here, these free family dinner nights and the $25 gift cards, we just started doing this a few weeks ago, and knock on wood, we have not had employees calling out, and we have had everyone raving about how exciting that is. And so something's working. So yeah, we don't always know what's working, but something's working at this point in time. For the marina, we'd be looking at for department-specific incentives for employees. is for employees who work at the marina having either a free mooring ball that you could utilize or 1 free trailer storage. Also having winter storage, both of these would be limited to 10 max and it'd be based off of space availability. Same concept here, the free boat rental. If it's not rented, it'll only be day of, and then no after hours rentals. In terms of department specific incentives we lumped everything here together with administration, town hall, the information center, and the museum would be moving to an optional 4-day work week, but it's only eligible if your job or the workload allows. Also looking at this optional work from home blend, which is once again, only eligible if the job or the workload allows. And for police, they currently get an interest-free firearm loan assistance program that none of the other employees get. This is specific to PD, which is probably good, but that's, yes. So the questions for council. First question, once again, has to do about moving the wage. Second question has to do about incentives available based on your job status. And the third question has to do about incentives based upon job location and department. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to you for discussion, questions.
Well, I think we should just dive in on that first question on the minimum wage. I think because that's the seemingly to me the most important of the conversations. And go for it. I'll leave.
This is fabulous. Obviously a ton of work, a ton of thought. Fundamentally, I think this is what staff is and leadership is there to do. This shouldn't be a council question. We provided a budget. The budget allows for this, I'm sure, because we have so many vacancies that we're not pressed. You're not asking us for more money. You're asking us for our approval of your suggestions for benefits and how to retain and replace employees. And that's bluntly your job, not my job. So I think as long as you're not asking us for more money in the budget, I'm good with everything. Now, with that said, I don't think we can approve an increase in the minimum wage without an understanding and the full knowledge of how much is the compression going to cost. So while I think it's great that you're going to do it, I would vote no to do it now because you haven't provided enough data to make the actual decision. So it's a distinction, but it's an important one because there's going to be a high additional cost. And until we see that number, I think it's irresponsible for us to approve that. 4-day work week, my only question is just confirming that would mean 10 hours a day, right? If you're going to work 4 days, you get to work more hours on those
Currently it would be
days.
10 hours a day based off of how we classify our employees.
Yeah.
Should we change the status of our employees? So full-time changes to not necessarily mean 40 hours. If full-time changed to say 36 hours or 32 hours, that would change
We're not
accordingly.
just
But
lopping off
otherwise-
Friday.
Yeah.
We're making Monday
Yes.
through Thursday a little longer.
Right.
Just confirming. So again, I want to be really clear that I do support you as the town manager and the leadership team taking intro wages up to $17. But if you're going to ask me to approve it, I'm going to say no right now because of the lack of data on the compression issue.
Fair enough. And I would say we will not have that information from the compensation study for a couple more months. We know that.
Then do it
What we
without
did,
asking.
what we did do is we did budget, as part of the 2022 budget, we did account for the compensation study. And so Leslie was very kind and pulled those numbers today, right? And so we did budget 5% of salaries, which I think was about $340,000 as part of the 2022 budget that we know we're going to most likely have to account for as a result of what we get from the compensation study. So I just don't have that. I won't have that information right now.
I
Yeah.
fully understand.
Yep.
Yep. And I hope you do in return.
Yep.
Dan, go for it.
Andrew, thanks. I share some of the same sentiments. I'm kind of in the same boat in terms of, every department I think is in a unique position to really appreciate what they need to do to attract people in their sphere, right? I think 17 is reasonable. A question for you is,
is that, so would the 17 be starting with seasonal part-time? So seasonal part-time at the marina would start at
17,
17.
correct.
Okay, just want to be clear on that. In terms of the compression, I'm not as concerned. I think, following the same line of thought, I would imagine it would all be in line. I don't think that in terms of taking that conversation one step further, when that information is available, making the salary and wage adjustments as appropriate at the time, I think you can do in real time when you have that information. Don't worry about it. I know from an inflation standpoint, I don't worry about wringing the money out of the budget as much. I know as one of the positive derivatives, if there is, of inflation, is that with sales tax being a percentage of that, our revenue is going to grow commensurately with the rate of inflation. So we need to be prepared to do that and do that in real time. I don't think it's going to bung up the conversation too much if we wait a couple months or just prepared to do it now. I'm prepared to do it when you have the information to do it. I think it's all going to be concurrent. So, but I understand that's an issue. With regards to the 4-day work week, my only concern is the positions where the public is used to having access to those services 5 days a week. So it's not clear to me to whom that 4-day work week would be extended. I know if I want to pick up the phone, if I'm a liquor licensee and I want to pick up the phone on a Friday and get hold of Deborah, I want to. If I want to get a hold of Rick Wyman in building, if I want to. So on a Friday, I would be a little disconcerted if I found out on a Friday at 11 o'clock, I couldn't get this question answered until Monday at 8. Or if that 4-day work week was always Monday through Thursday, or is it Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or is it? So I think there'd be some consistency issues when it comes to the interface with the public, and I think that could be problematic in terms of getting services provided, meeting expectations. So addressing that expectation gap would be critical, I think. 17 is a great place to start, I think. If we're, I'm sorry, going back to focusing on the first question, which was the $15 to $17 an hour. So I support that at the minimum, but I think that's probably competitive from the frontline standpoint, especially when we look at the incentive packages that are impressive. So I'm on board for the 17. And we'll circle back on.
Go for it, Andy.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks. This is comprehensive and great information. And in today's world, during the Great Resignation, this is all wholly important. And so I believe we need every bit of it and more. I think the compression issues, it's just like Aspen did. Everybody gets $2 raise across the board. We have it in the budget. We can figure that out. I don't think we necessarily need data to say that, or more data to say that our people aren't necessarily getting paid a living wage here, and with compression, obviously we can't raise starting employee to 17 and then they're equal with somebody who's been working here for a year, at $17 an hour. That's just not fair. Right. And, but if you want to hire the summer people, we have to raise that wage now, because as you're saying, we're hiring in March for the summer. And if we're going to wait a couple months, then we're going to miss out on this summer, for potentially higher value employees. So I'm all for all of it and more.
Thanks. Thank you.
I am in the majority with my colleague, or minority with my colleagues here, I would say. On the minimum wage issue, go forth and conquer. I mean, I don't need any more information than that. I think on the incentive side, my biggest concern is around, well, let me back up. What's missing here for me is a dollar value to what these incentives are. because this costs the town something. You could flip that and say, this is an investment in our employees, but there's a dollar amount to that, right? And I'm not, and maybe it's perceived, but I don't know that because I don't have the information. But my perception is that the certain jobs that are very specialized, for example, the adventure park, as you used in your presentation, you know, the value of those incentives, is that value being shared across all departments, I guess, is my point. And so while there should be some job specific incentives to retain people in very specialized roles, I also feel like there's an underlying value that everybody within that class or that status should enjoy. So for example, on the Copper Pass, right? Like, just because they work in snow sports, why would that preclude somebody from town hall from also being able, if they wanted to get a free season pass, right? There's a discount here. They do have access to cheaper Copper Passes or whatever it is. But I guess I'm just getting at, I feel like the value of those specific incentives for those specific roles are not fair. So I would like to see more of a dollar value put on those, just to make sure that what we're offering at the marina is a similar opportunity as somebody who's at the PRA. I thought that a cafeteria plan for particular incentives could get at that issue. You know, if you've surveyed staff and they're not interested in that, then that's a different issue, and maybe I'm out of touch with that. But for me, this is not enough. This is a lot. This is a lot of stuff. People get really good stuff, but there's not a value to it. And so, like, just something's missing for me in this, and I'm having a hard time now articulating that as well. But yeah,
on that, if I may, you know, it would be interesting to know the values, but the value to employee is also different that way, right? You know, as far as, you know, should we have ski passes for everyone? Absolutely. We live in ski town. I would work at Copper Mountain otherwise, you know, and, you know, a free pass is a free pass. That's why people live here, you know. But you know, like say the take home police car or that sort of thing, like, yeah, it's not in line, but it's also not even across the board. It's not 1-for-1 for what somebody's getting paid. And, you know, so if we offer the marina to marina employees, like the slips, that sort of thing, the slip on paper might be $1,000. But the value to the town of what it costs us to do it is not $1,000, right? It's maybe a loss of $1,000 in that we can't rent it out to somebody else, right? Unless we could just keep adding mooring balls or something. But then the value to that employee at $1,000 is not the same for that employee to say, well, just give me an extra $1,000, because that is not even. That's like worth 10 grand to an employee who would otherwise have their boat there because they're within that scene, right? So I'm with you as far as it'd be great to know what it would all cost, but those costs are different to what the town pays for it, right? And most of these don't cost us much, the town, right? But that I was just, you know, going to expound on that particular point of, you know, what the values of each of these things are. And I don't necessarily agree that they have to be even across the board, because, you know, is it that $1,000? Like, will I get $1,000 in lunches instead of getting a ski pass or something? Like, I don't know that that's 1-for-1, right? Just my opinion there.
You got my head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to debate it or you know, I'm I'm not there. I think there's a lot of really good stuff here, but something just doesn't sit right with me in the equity and fairness across the board. And I don't, maybe it's not a value thing. I don't know what it is.
You're talking about not having one coin in the ground. You're talking about paying people in different currency. So, and the value of which is not necessarily always equitable, but, I think you could really go down that rabbit hole and then at the end of the day, still end up kind of right where you are, because ultimately not everybody avails themselves equally of all these opportunities. They just don't have it. They don't have the opportunity to enjoy all the incentives at an equal level. So I think when you look at it from the standpoint of our budget and the value it on paper provides, when you look at this matrix on paper and I'm coming on board, I think, wow, this value is incredible. It's kind of like one of those coupon packages that has $58,000 in coupons that you'll use, $20, but it's, I think the value is having the bundle there, put in front of people. And as I look at the matrix, it looks widely available to most employees across the board. And where it's not, I think you can have a conversation to some degree about, where do you want to transition from the more kind of universal incentive package to a more specific benefit package for this position. I think that's something you can have within your departments to say, in general, at the marina, the manager should have, hypothetically speaking, maybe he gets a slip, and then these three get a mooring ball, and then after that, everybody's kind of forgot they can avail themselves of whatever they want. My concern when it comes to cost, kind of, especially at the marina, and Andy kind of alluded to this, is it's really the cost is displacement. So as we displace people, we need to be careful. We just, the tubing hill, I think there just has to be some acknowledgement that when you have this benefit package, there's some blackout times. There's some times where you can't use it. It's available to you at these days, and the people who operate that concession certainly should be aware of when those opportunities are there. Otherwise, you do start the town does start to incur more of a cost. I think we should be prepared to invest a reasonable amount of, quite a bit of money into this from that standpoint. So I don't get too twisted around the axle on that, but I'm concerned a little bit about boat maintenance and what happens when somebody wrecks the boat when they're out in it, and what dings the propeller and things like that. I just want to make sure those simple waiver things, those simple accountability things are taken care of. If they do take it out, assuming that the rental contract looks substantially the same, even though there's no transactional fee involved. So as long as those things are covered, from my standpoint, this bundle looks great. I think, again, it's widely available to just about everybody. And then you can carve out those positions, those more senior positions, and they get that little bit extra part of their package incentive. I don't want to call it a compensatory feature, but it would be a incentive feature that's available to them, and that makes sense to me. In terms of the Copper Pass, for this, Diane, I think you make a good point. This particular outside in the tubing hill, 10 degrees, if you're at town hall and you want that job because you want a free pass, it's available. We're hiring. We had this same, within just my small business, defending wages for different job classifications was always an ongoing thing. How come this guy gets 17 and he gets 18? Well, it's a combination of skill set and seniority and that intangible that he brings to the job. And I'm willing to sit and have that conversation with that person to say, this is why. You want to aspire to that? Here's how it works. Here's a checklist. Get busy. So I think that's defendable. I think it makes sense. And I think the package is so, it's so comprehensive. You leverage every aspect of everything we offer as a town to bring it together for primarily just about everybody to take advantage of. So I think it's successful in the intent of trying to use all of them together to attract without trying to get kind of drill down into what specifically is work, because everybody's going to take advantage of that at different level. That's what we are.
So I think if I'm keeping track well enough through what people are saying, I think, and on the wage side, I'm all for the 17. I think personally, I'd love to see more if the budget was there for it, knowing that the compression hit will be there. But I think, that's what we're seeing everywhere around the world is people aren't going to do jobs if they don't feel like they're getting compensated for it. And I think we need to lead on that. So I'm great at 17, and if next year with 1750, I wouldn't be opposed to revisiting it again or bring that back up, because I think that's just what we're seeing. I hear, Jesse, what you're saying. I think I get it. And I think as we look at the list of things to continue to research, I think some of those would be a great some of those have pretty big costs associated. I think that would be a good place to look at that. But I think there's enough in support of the incentives as written, but maybe the 4-day work week seemed a little gray still. And maybe we need more clarification on that. Would that be fair to say? Or a couple of you mentioned it, and so I just wanted to see.
Again,
Trust the leader.
I trust the leadership to make it so we're not going from a 40-hour week to a 32-hour week and same pay. And
Well, we just provide services Monday through Friday for the community, Monday through Friday. You just gotta make sure that those services are represented, right? Whoever's gonna backfill the spot, however's gonna happen, they have to be competent, they have to be knowledgeable, they have to be able to.
Yeah, and
Deliver.
for a lot of our positions, right, it won't even be possible because we also have a 7-day-a-week operation, right? PD, Public Works, all the operations we've got, all the facilities we've got open. So yeah, we would definitely want to make sure that we still provide that level of service. You're right.
Only question I had, it would be for the chief, if I can get. Is anybody just purchase their officer's firearm for them and then is just part of their supplies is their firearm and that's purchased for them by their department?
No, we have a number of 45s because that's what we have on the street, because the trajectory of a 45 is 980 feet per second, where 9mm is 1900 feet. We don't want one all the way down Main Street, but so typically they will want their own weapon. Has to be a 45. So they'll put into finance and they'll get their loan. That's how that basically works. So did I answer your question?
Well, would there be benefit of just saying is once you're hired on that we will purchase you your own firearm?
How much is a gun?
Well, let me tell you something.
It's a bad idea, but I just was surprised.
I'm going
by
to tell
it.
you this, that a Glock will run you $900, but a Smith & Wesson or a Kimber will run you $2,200. So, but I like that idea. Let's just buy
My
it
idea
all.
was how much is a gun? That was the only idea I had.
No, it's a wide variety of space in terms of what kind of weapon you get.
Wouldn't we have a standard issue that, you chose, that if we were to provide instead of, having a loan, then maybe we would give a Glock to everyone.
Yeah, who wants a Glock? That's a waste of a gun.
I don't think we.
That's crap. No, I'm just kidding.
Does that seem like, especially in your department where we've struggled so much and had, that just seemed like a question I wasn't aware if that would be a good idea or not. And so, yeah, I think
That's a good question.
maybe we can add it to the research list of, instead of a loan is
Having a standard issue that you get to.
not even a standard issue, but I think, and it might just be something that if one officer wants the $400 gun and another one wants the 2,000, if that's what they're comfortable with for an investment in an officer after, say, a year, then they keep that weapon as part of their
I'm up for
compensation
that.
package. But the loan is forgiven. Yep.
We
Yep.
do give them a gun if they don't have a standard issue.
You
gun.
get 500 towards it, and whatever
Yeah.
gun you want, you pay the rest. I don't know.
But I think that's just, see if we could add to the research potential of trying to make that. an
I mean,
easier
I'm all
thing.
for a new gun for myself.
Yeah. Can we vote on that right now? Yeah. So thanks, Chief. That did answer my question. So is more curiosity and maybe we can look into that. Diane, to run through your questions, I do think there was enough support at the $17 an hour to start there. Question 2 is incentive status. I didn't hear much conversation around that. Was there any more? I know, Dan, you said you were going to follow up on something, but I wasn't
No,
sure
I
if you
kinda
felt that.
did.
Okay. And I think Jesse's point is a good one. If we could try to start to think of these in their monetary value as we add new ones, or if it's obvious, that'd be great to see. But I think there was support across the board on going with this incentive package as proposed.
With that, you just started with divergence,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, there's not that much to- there's very few places where you have created incentives that are scaled enough, I think, to where, you know, I think you want to evaluate it from that standpoint.
Mhm.
Most of this is pretty universal. But in terms of support of non-monetary incentives available to staff based on job status, and location department, again, you haven't created 90% of the incentives, you know, are universal. So I think it goes to whether or not the you know, between, you know, not talking about full-time year-round benefits versus, you know, stuff that's not going to, you know, focus on incentives. You know, I think there's just those positions, those senior positions where maybe you're trying to carve out, get to seniority or tenure, that little bit of extra compensatory stuff with those incentives. And I think I like the package.
Anything else? Since this was just direction, we don't need a motion or anything. Follow up for us.
That's great. Nothing. That's great. Thank you so much. Thanks to Mindy and her team as well for putting all this good information together. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just because it is so so large in scope, what is where's the best way for an employee? Do they get a new employee? Will they just get a binder, you know, a little folder with because there's quite a lot going on there and keep it in front of people all the time. So
Absolutely.
is that what is the
Well, right now we have, they have access on our G Drive. And if they're not someone who is at a computer often, there's pamphlets, or not pamphlets, but handouts. They can always ask HR, or of course their hiring managers often know that. And then when they onboard, if this is for a new employee, they get all of this information on their platform. So they have a platform that continues with them throughout their employment. So they can go back and look at it. And of course, we're always making updates. And a lot of people will find out about something that they didn't know during the winter season that they are going to then hopefully they're going to utilize in the summer season. So that is so important as far as what's out there and do they have hands on it? Yeah, they do. And we also have an intranet where they can access all of our incentives now.
Thank you.
There's an executive session. That's agenda item number 4.
I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 parentheses 4 parentheses B, conferences with an attorney for the town for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, and parentheses E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators concerning water service for the proposed Lake Hill development.
Moved to enter an executive session. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Fallon. Discussion on the motion. Call question, please.
Fallon.
Yeah.
Held. Incan. Absent. Mortensen.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Burley.
Yes.
Thank you. And we are contacting Rick and Melissa too.
Awesome,
Yes.
thank you.
So I will shut this one down and start the next one.
Does anybody need a quick break before we jump into this? All right, come back in 5 minutes. Get another.
Just